guys, it's Justine here from I Should Read That.
And Josie from the Gym Book Club. And today the two of us are talking about the Folk of the Air series by Holly Black. So far, just The Cruel Prince and The Wicked King. And we thought what we'd like to do for you today is firstly do a sort of like fangirl over why we really love the first two books and why you should read them if you haven't. And then after that, do a little from here on there are spoilers bit and talk about what we think is going to happen in the next book, the last book in the series, which is called The Queen of Nothing.
Yes.
So, Justine, what did you like about these books?
So, this is actually an interesting one because I don't typically like fae books. For whatever reason. I think it's just, I haven't read very many, but the few that I have read, I felt like didn't quite capture what makes them sort of dangerous and intriguing and mysterious and all that good stuff. So I never quite felt sort of the tension and the danger and all of that. And then I read The Cruel Prince, mostly because it came in a book subscription box. I just happened to have a copy of it. And I read it at the right time, which is when I was moving house. It was exactly what I needed at that time. And I thought it was fun. I liked it well enough, but I loved the ending. And I decided I was going to pick up The Wicked King just because I enjoyed it and didn't want to be left out. And I loved The Wicked King. So it's been an interesting experience because I was like, I'll get it from the library. It'll be fine, whatever. And then I just happened to have been in a Waterstones on release day and I was like, boom, up the stairs and I picked it up and I'm really, really glad that I did.
You see, I had a slightly different experience. I also don't really like fae books. And that's because I'm not really into fairies.
Yeah.
I find them a bit wishy-washy and or at least I thought I did before I read the series. So the thing that I really adore about the fae is this thing where you get locked into promises.
Yes, yeah.
And this is the first series of books that I've ever read that really exploits that.
Yes.
And has it as hard lines, because I feel like too many people, particularly YA authors, who write about the fae have this sort of wobbly line with it. And particularly when they're writing fae who are expected to blend with other people to have that sort of relationship where they're not just big baddies. Yeah. And I feel like there was a bit of both of that in this series, because the basic premise of the series, for those of you who haven't read it, is that there are three sisters who are Jude and Taryn, who are both human and they're twins, and their sister, whose name is
Vivian.
Yeah. Who is half fae.
Yes, yeah.
And they are at a very early age, so I think Taryn and Jude are about 8 or something.
Yeah, they're young enough, but not that young.
They are captured and taken away to be brought up in fae by their sister's father, so Viv's dad. And so these two human girls grow up in the land of the fairies, and there's this sort of tension through The Cruel Prince of them trying to prove themselves as just as good as the fairies, which they struggle with. And I think that dynamic of having people living side by side with the fae, where the fae present a danger to humans, but these humans are part of their society.
Yeah, and especially because he's kind of their sort of adopted father is like a high level person, so they can't really mess with them that much, but there's still this level of this sort of inequality between them because they're mortal, but they can do certain things that the fae can't, but the fae are also immortal and they have powers and all of this.
It's a lovely way of setting up that powerful fae who will mess with humans, but in a storyline where the humans have to interact very closely with the fae. They are their friends, they are their family, they are intrinsically involved in each other's lives.
Yeah.
And that dynamic worked for me in this series in a way that it hasn't worked anywhere else.
Yeah, she does it incredibly well. It's the only time where I've really felt that kind of separation and that kind of tension. Because usually for me they feel quite cartoonish in a way and very silly, even though they're supposed to be kind of like scary. They're scary in this book. I would not want to be in anyone's position in this book because that's just terrifying.
The only other series that I've read that does the fae well are Heather O'Gilleen's The Call and the Invasion, but those are straight out bad fairies, do not play with people. Okay. And that's the difference. I think fairies need to be bad, and they are too often nice. And Heather's books are very good at at doing that because they have this distinct line between, you know, if a fairy sees you, it will try and kill you.
Yeah.
And eat you, probably. You know, they're kind of like horror. And these books, whilst being, I think, basically a romance, a sort of romance fantasy YA, they managed to retain that brutality, which I love.
Yeah, it's great. It's great.
But I think one of the reasons that The Cruel Prince really hooked me in a way that I don't think it hooked you initially was that I adored Jude, who's the main character, and the book is written present tense, first person, so it stays very close to Jude, and she is, I think, probably my favourite YA protagonist ever because she has so much agency.
Yes.
She is in control all the time. She doesn't do things just because she kind of has to, and she gets battered along. She isn't
forced
passive.
into the situation. She just sort of, yeah.
She is to a certain extent forced into this situation because she's been kidnapped.
Yeah.
But then she's in it and she goes, well, screw this. I'm taking control and I'm going to do this, this, this. And she ends up crafting the plot of the novel by her actions in a way that I don't think I've seen that in YA fantasy recently.
No. I like her. I struggled a little bit with her sort of motivations because I felt she was a little bit scattered in the first book. But I feel like in this book, she really gets it together, and I love she is unapologetically sort of power hungry. She says multiple times in the books, now that I've had this taste of power, I can't give it up. I don't want to give it up. She has so much agency. She does sort of these manipulative, awful things, and she does it sort of for the sake of her family and all of that, which is great, but she also does it for herself. And I love that because you don't get characters like that, especially in YA, but often just in fantasy. If they're women, they don't have that kind of characteristic. But she remains feminine, and she remains very much sort of herself. She doesn't lose herself to all of this, but she's so sort of, she's awful, but she's amazing at the same time. I would hate to know her.
Ambitious.
Yes, yes.
She's like, you know, she's someone that she would just slap you out of the way. If you were someone who were in her way, then she would dispose of you. But she's not cruel, she's just ruthless.
Yeah.
And I think it was that juxtaposition of the titular character in The Cruel Prince, who is cruel, who is deliberately unpleasant, that juxtaposed with Jude's character, who just wants what she wants and she will screw you over to get it.
Yeah.
That wonderful dynamic between those two characters is what I loved about The Cruel Prince, and when I read The Wicked King, like, I didn't think I could give a book a higher rating than the 5 stars that I gave to The Cruel Prince, but when I read The Wicked King, I was dead. Yeah. I have not been able to stop thinking about this book.
Yeah.
Ever since I read it. I adored it.
Yeah. Well, she's really clever in that we should probably get to spoiler section, I imagine, but she's really clever in the way that she manipulates that whole sort of thing of fae promises and how wording is so important. That is so vital to the plot of the book and sort of to the series overall, because the entire book is based on not only Jude's ability to lie, because she's mortal, the fae can't lie, but also the fact that she's grown up here. She's not some sort of mortal who stumbled in. She knows exactly how to phrase things. She knows exactly how to manipulate the fae in a way that they can manipulate her. But she also knows how they're going to try to get out of stuff. So I feel really weird talking about spoilers.
Let's do it. Spoilers.
Oh yeah, spoilers. Especially for The Cruel Prince. The way that she manipulates Cardon into giving her power and putting him on. Oh, so good. I loved the ending of The Cruel Prince. That's what solidified it for me. Because the first parts were kind of like, okay, it's fine. And then sort of the murder and like the manipulation and just all of that, I was completely blown away. I loved that. And that's what sort of is very prevalent in this book, which is one of the reasons that I loved it so much. But the way that things are worded is so important, and I thought that it was so clever the way that she managed to do all of that, and just we have spent days picking apart various bits of
literally days.
the way people will say something, because the way you say something, you choose one word instead of the other, you say something one way instead of another, is so completely important and vital.
And I think that the thing about this book, it's that step up, isn't it? So in The Cruel Prince, it was a book that felt like it was about Jude and Taryn trying to find their way in a world that wasn't theirs, and trying to prove that they were as good as the Fae, and could find something that would make them excellent despite their apparently obvious deficiencies as humans. And in that book I felt like the message was, okay, we're all different, but you play to your strengths.
Yeah.
And you can always find something that you can do. But then it started off being a story about Jude wanting to be a knight and training for it and getting it given to her. And then there's this sudden switch, and it's immediately about manipulation, and it's about power struggles, and it's about two people who are, as it turns out, although neither of them looks like a formidable opponent, they are both perfectly matched for each other. Yeah. And the way that they have that conflict throughout the books, and particularly The Wicked King, between Cardan and Jude, and having it's just that I think that's what really makes the romance for me. Yeah. In this.
Because I should hate this romance. This romance should not be good, but it's really good.
I mean, they are bastards. Both of them are complete shits to each other. It shouldn't be good, but it is. They are both so manipulative that it's because they are equals that it works.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's a really good point.
They're both fucking each other over, basically.
Yeah.
And that's
awesome.
it. It's so good!
It's funny because I kind of struggled with Cardan, I think, in the first book a little bit more, because he's cruel. He's the cruel prince. But in the second book, I really still kind of struggle a little bit with some of his actions and stuff, but I feel like I get him much more now. And I love the way that he is, we don't really know sort of his actual thoughts, because this is first person, so we're not in his head, but the way that he acts, I can't tell if he either is starting to come around to Jude and kind of like her more, or if he's playing his own game, if he's completely manipulating her too, and I'm just like, what's going on?
It could go either way, and the problem is that because you're in Jude's head and you see how scheming she is, and you see how many steps ahead she's moving, and how much she is willing to control him, and basically render him impotent because she's going, well, no, you've got to do what I say. Yeah. If you are seeing them as two people who are equally matched, and I think they probably are, then you've got to reflect that on him as well, and assume that he'd be willing to do the same. But then you've got that thing that is the hangover from the first book, where he's obsessed with her as well. And you've got to wonder how much of that obsession is a sort of positive I want you obsession, and how much of that obsession has, over the course of the 6 months where she's controlled him, turned to hatred. Yeah. Because it's that very obsessive focus of his that you kind of feel like it could go either way. Yeah. And although it goes one way in this book, and I feel like that was a genuine scene where they finally sort of a little bit got it on. Yeah. Yeah. You don't know how much has changed since. And there's that scene towards the end, which you and I have talked about a lot.
Extensively.
Where she goes off and murders, or gets into a duel with, and ends up killing, thingy-minning, begins with B.
It's not Dane. Dane's the other one.
It's...
Oh my god, you'd think we had... Baelkin. You'd think we had read these.
I know, right? So the bit where she ends up going off and killing Baelkin. Yes. And they've just had a sort of snuggly nice scene together. Yeah. She goes and kills Cardan's brother, and then comes back, and they have the and this is obviously big spoiler territory, but we're hoping that we've lost everyone who doesn't want spoilers by this point.
Please go away.
Yeah, if you haven't read this. If you haven't read this bit, please don't watch this bit. Yeah. So just after they've had the marriage ceremony, so they do the marriage thing, and then he doesn't find out until afterwards that she's killed Baelkin, or Balakin, or however you say
whatever his name is.
So it seems like that last scene where he banishes Jude is maybe motivated by his pettiness in getting grumpy because she's got into a duel with his brother and killed him.
And married him without telling him that she did this thing, which she knew he would care about.
Although she's
said,
like,
don't kill him.
It's a sort of deceptive thing, isn't it? That, she lies to him all the time, he lies to her all the time. But you wonder at that stage of their marriage, that point, whether he has genuinely fallen for her and has been telling her the truth.
Yeah.
And then only decides that he's going to take this power to himself and eject her, banish her, because it's a sort of retaliation.
Yeah.
And I just don't know. I mean, that's one way of reading it.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like... So, okay, I've got the marriage here.
Okay. I'll get the banishment.
So I, Cardon, son of Eldred, High King of Elfheim, take you, Jude Borday, be my wife and queen. Let us be wed until we wish for it to be otherwise, and the crown has passed from our hands. And I feel like that is super important.
That's feel like really important. I mean, the thing that, as a lawyer, the thing that my brain immediately did was went, let us be wed until we A, wish for it to be otherwise, and B, the crown has passed from our hands.
Those tiny words, the and, I think.
It's the and. It's not an or, it's and. So basically, it sounds like they cannot not be wed until the crown has passed from their hands. Yeah. Even if they decide that they don't want to be wed anymore, they have to be.
To banish her later on, he might have, if that wasn't the case, he might have had the option to say, well, I don't want to be married to you anymore. Yeah. So that's actually a really good point. Oh my god, this is why I like talking about this book with you, because you're better at this kind of thing than me. I'm just like...
Lawyer brain. Basically, they can't, until he's not king anymore, or until the crown has passed from their hands, whatever that means, they have to stay married.
Yeah. And she says, I forsake my command over you. You are free from your vow of obedience for now and for always.
For always.
Always. That's probably not a good idea, Jude.
I mean, those were bad words to have chosen.
Yeah, she definitely, I feel like she definitely got caught up in the marriage ceremony thing. Because it was his idea. I'm not entirely sure that he was doing it completely because he liked her. I think that he's got something up his... Because I feel like he's always got something up his sleeve. He's good at this kind of thing because he has to work within these limitations because he is Fae. Oh, it's so good.
And then they do that... So that's that bit. So that's with that important wording. And then the second bit of important wording is when he does the actual banishment.
Yes.
Which is... And he refuses to deny it, which is why she, that bit that you read earlier, you said he wouldn't be able to deny her, which is why she says deny it, and he won't. So when he banishes her, he says, hear my judgment, I exile Jude Duarte to the mortal world, until and unless she is pardoned by the crown, let her not step 1 foot in fairy or forfeit her life. So, we had, I think, 2 main thoughts about this.
Yes.
Based on 2 bits of this wording. So, the first bit of wording that we were interested in was the until and unless she is pardoned by the crown.
Yes, until and unless.
So basically, if she's never pardoned by the crown, she can't ever come back.
Yeah.
But if she is, then she can come back at that point.
Yeah.
But the issue is, who's the crown?
Yeah. It's not him. He doesn't say him. It could be anyone. It could be someone 100 years from now when he passes it along. It doesn't have to be him.
And is it, is she the crown? Because in their marriage vows they say until the crown passes from our hands, which suggests that the crown is in her hands at the moment as the Queen of Fairy.
Yeah.
So
and it has to be a mutual.
Maybe so is can she pardon herself or can she not pardon herself? I don't know. Point 1 would be that one, and then the one that I am more attracted to
this is the one that I'm really interested in. Yeah.
So I think where we're going to get, if I had to put my money on what happened in the next book, I would put my money on the next bit being the important bit, which is he says, unless until she's pardoned by the crown, let her not step 1 foot in fairy or forfeit her life. So she's not allowed to step 1 foot in fairy. Now,
could be her hopping up and down on 1 foot, which I love the mental image of, but I highly doubt that is actually
I was thinking, I was like handstand walking.
With his wording, it could be it. You never know.
The thing that particularly attracted my eye on this wording is that the actual phrase is set 1 foot, not step 1 foot.
Yeah.
So the author must have deliberately corrupted that phrase, that idiom. So it's step 1 foot, because you could set 1 foot in fairy if you were like in fairy and had your foot on.
Yeah.
But if you have to step, then presumably it means that she can come back to fairy as long as she's not walking in fairy. So what I was thinking,
this is my favorite thing.
I
love this theory.
This is my absolute end theory, having talked it through with everyone. I think that there was that point earlier in The Wicked King where Grimson, the smith, that's his name, isn't it?
Something like that, yeah.
He crafts I think it's when he's off schmoozing with Nicassia.
Yes.
And he crafts a trinket that gives someone wings, that they wear the amulet or whatever, and then they get wings.
Yeah.
So my thought was maybe that amulet or a similar thing is found or ordered by Jude, and then she flies into fairy, because then she won't be stepping foot.
Yeah. Well, and also, as far as we know, as far as I can remember, the smith has disappeared. We don't know where he is, so it could be that he's hiding in the mortal world. She hunts him down and is like, listen, give me the thing, and then she goes back. I think that's the one that makes the most sense to me, more than handstands and hopping on 1 foot. That makes
definitely more than that, because like there's an element of ridiculousness to that.
Yeah, and it feels like that line where someone says that he's crafted this trinket feels like a throwaway line, but I feel like she's not really one for throwaway lines. I feel like she's going to bury something important to make it feel like it's maybe a throwaway line. So I'm completely convinced if this isn't what happens in the next book, I'm going to be very upset.
I think my heart is set on that. I want her to have wings and fly into fairy. I think that's
awesome.
That's like my money's on that. But I think the other thing that we were talking about, which I still haven't really solved in my mind, is why this series, 2 books so far, going to be 3, is called The Folk of the Air.
Yeah, when they're only mentioned, again, it feels like a kind of throwaway conversation. They're only mentioned once in the second book. I don't think they're ever mentioned in the first book, because I remember thinking about the title when I was going to get this book. I don't know what the Folk of the Air are. I just assumed it was all of the Fae.
Yeah, as did I.
But they're mentioned somewhere. I'm not even going to try to find it.
I did find it once. I'm not going to be able to find it again. There is that point when she is she's returned from the sea.
Yes.
And she is trying to get back into the palace, and she is ejected by the guards, and she goes to try and get into the tunnel to the Court of Shadows, and she can't get in because it's been collapsed. And so she goes around the side of the palace, and she finds Valmoran, who was the previous seneschal, who is the old human who was in love with the previous king. She finds him in the gardens, and he is looking at a load of fairy kids, basically. He's kind of supervising them playing in the garden. And he says to her, after previously having said that he would try and help her but that she wouldn't heed his guidance, he says I know. Yeah. He says to her, do you know who these are? And then he says, these are the folk of the air. They are people who are unable to hold one form. And then he says something like dandelion fluff on the wind. So they're shapeshifters. Yeah. Basically. Yeah. So does that mean that someone has been impersonated by a shapeshifter, or that someone can be, or does that mean that they can like just turn into dogs or whatever?
Yeah. Or can they somehow help her infiltrate if they are shapeshifters, or if they're the folk of the air? Are they? Because we've only, again, seen them this one time. Do they live elsewhere that's maybe outside of Fae, outside of his kingdom? They have to come in at some point because it's the name of the series. I don't know how they're going to come in.
Do they like live in the trees? Do they like make wings for themselves? And then are they going to kind of help Jude come into, because would she be stepping foot in fairy if she lived in a tree for a bit? I mean, who knows?
Yeah.
Possibilities. And I cannot believe that we have to wait until next year.
Well, that's the problem with reading these books, like, immediately. I think I read this the week it came out.
Yes, so did
And I was like, great. Oh, right. One more year.
Yeah.
Which just seems unfair, honestly.
It does.
And I know it's written because I think it's someone who works at her US publisher, has read it and was being like, on Twitter, and I was like,
that's just mean. Why would you do that?
It's one of the reasons to work in in publishing, I guess.
It is. But then I suppose she probably had all of the others a year early, and so she probably had the same experience. True. Like, all of us have to wait a year at some point.
What I'm really happy about for the next book is apparently they're not doing advanced copies for it.
Yes,
which
so
I'm
it's
really
not going to be spoiled.
About. Yeah, because people were posting spoilers for this book, which is like, if there's any book that should not be spoiled, it's like Game of Thrones and this one, because the reveals are so big. People were posting spoilers before the book even came out, so I'm glad we're all going to be on the same playing field for the next one. I'm very excited.
I don't know, somehow I managed to avoid this on Twitter.
Yeah.
I'm friends with a bunch of book bloggers. I follow so many book bloggers on Twitter, but all of the ones whom I follow, it's people complaining about other people spoilering.
I do see a lot of that.
and no actual spoilers. Yeah. I never actually see any spoilers.
I saw a couple, but they were artwork. People had done some artwork, and I was just like, no, scroll past.
I saw some.
It, but yeah. Now, I know that people were like doing videos, and there's like the incorrect cruel prints or whatever.
Oh, that killed me because
I
love that account. It's hilarious. Yeah. But I wasn't sure that it was okay to look at.
You just have to block that until you actually read it.
Actually, looking back at it, I think it was all right, and I think it wasn't spoilery. Because it's all made up, that's the point. But because it's all made up, you don't know whether it's a spoiler or not. So I
get really paranoid.
Yeah,
I just knew.
I mean, I only saw artwork, but it was artwork of like Jude and Cardown smooching, and you knew that was going to happen anyway.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a spoiler.
No.
Honestly.
Yeah, there's definitely... Yeah, there's going to be more than smooching in the next
There has to be an escalation. I'm going to be really... Like, the thing is, in The Wicked King, it's never clear whether or not they actually bang.
Yeah, because I was kind of under the impression that they did, but later on I kind of get the feeling that they maybe didn't.
I was thinking maybe clear. Like... Because they take their shirts off.
Yeah.
And I thought it maybe stopped at shirts off.
Yeah. It's kind of that the curtain falls and you don't really know what happens.
But, you know, I think in the next book... My prediction is banging. There has to be banging.
There's going to be, there must be.
It needn't necessarily be on page because, you know, obviously this is YA and we don't do much on page sex in YA. But, like, there has to be a later curtain fall that makes it obvious. Or, you know, just like Cardown striding out of the palace the next day going, "We had sex!"
Guess what, guys? Yeah, that would be really funny. I would appreciate that. But I'm very excited to read the next one. I feel like I typically don't get really like hyped up and super excited about books. I really obviously enjoy them and all 5-star stuff. But I don't kind of get swept up in sort of the hype for books very often. But this is one of the very few exceptions, and it's not one that I expected to have that happen with because I was kind of okay with the first one. But I really love this one, and I'm fully like in the Twitter DMs like picking stuff apart and trying to figure out what exactly is going on, and it's really fun. I'm enjoying it.
I'm exactly the same. This is one of those books that has made me wonder whether I give out 5 stars when I shouldn't be.
Yeah,
because it's made me wonder, okay, because this book really needs 6 stars from me because I adored it so much. Like The Cruel Prince was a 5-star read, but this book I was anticipating so much and it lived up to it so much. Yeah. Like I can't remember the last time I read a book that lived up to the hype as much as this one did.
Insane hype, because that hype's been going on for months. I think they sent out copies, at least in the UK. They must have sent them out in, I don't know, maybe October or so. It came out in January, so it's been months and months and months. And I guess maybe part of it for me is that I didn't necessarily buy into the hype as much because I was kind of like sort of in the middle.
I mean, I pre-ordered my copy, but I was like,
yeah. But this has got me like fully in like conspiracy theory mode. I've like got I don't actually, but I've got like my like corkboard with all the strings going to all different, and it's just like it's really nice to feel that way because I don't usually get kind of that caught up in stuff, but this I'm like 100%.
And you know, like usually I'm one of those people who doesn't like reading books as they come out because I do like to, and I know it's terrible, and you know, to support the authors you really should buy them as they come out, and you know, but I'm someone who likes to binge a whole series at once.
Right.
But with this series, like part of that is because I don't like rereading books that I don't think are excellent. Yeah. But with this series, I'm like, I'm going to reread probably The Cruel Prince and this maybe 3 times before the next one comes out. Like I can see myself doing it over and over. Like I nearly reread this week, and I only finished doing it last week.
It came out like 2 weeks ago.
I know. But it does help that these are really short books.
They're they're really short, and again, they're like compulsively readable. Like I was reading this in the tub for like an hour and a half, just sitting in cold bath water, like
cold, yeah.
which again, it just doesn't happen to me. But I tore through this in a couple of days. I could have done it faster if I wasn't working.
I read it in one 5-hour stretch. I stayed up until like 2 in the morning because I could not put it down.
Yeah.
I just needed it.
I think it's a big credit to Holly Black for writing something that is so not only incredibly clever and well done and sort of with all the manipulation that goes on, but something that is so insanely readable.
It's so readable.
You just have to know what happens next.
I completely agree.